Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking what is genuinely one of the most massive, chaotic, and absolutely fascinating psychological character studies you'll probably ever see. Just picture this, all right? One giant room, 100 identical red circles, and 100 veterans from previous extreme challenges all trapped inside them. Now, this isn't just some basic test of who can stand in one place the longest. No way. As we're going to uncover today, it's practically a masterclass in human behavior, paranoia, and the total breakdown of the mind under some truly extraordinary pressure.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to really ask yourself, what does it genuinely take to outlast 99 experienced competitors in a complete psychological pressure cooker? You know, everyone in this room has competed in high-stakes environments before. Some have won millions, others have lost literally everything. So we're not dealing with beginners here. To survive this, you need an incredible mix of unyielding mental fortitude, calculated strategy, and just sheer, undeniable physical endurance.
And why exactly are they pushing themselves to the absolute brink? Well, it's because of this number right here, $500,000. The sheer magnitude of this prize completely dictates the brutal, paranoid, and just downright desperate behavior we're about to analyze. I mean, this isn't pocket change, right? It's life-changing money, just sitting at the back of the room taunting them. And a mountain of cash like that, it makes people do some extraordinary and honestly, sometimes hilarious things.
But the mastermind behind this whole challenge, Mr. Beast, applied a massive psychological weight right out of the gate with one single rule. I don't care if this takes weeks, months, or even a year. Think about the absolute horror of an open-ended time frame. There's no finish line to look forward to. Every single minute feels agonizing because you have absolutely no idea if you're going to be standing in that circle for another 3 hours or another 3 weeks.
Which brings us to phase one, the initial purge. Now, you'd probably think that with $500,000 on the line, people would be laser-focused, right? Well, human nature is incredibly fragile. And the irony between the staggeringly high stakes of this challenge and the hilariously simple ways the first wave of people failed is just, it's unbelievable.
The reasons for these early eliminations were completely bizarre. Take Big Justice, for example. He simply refused to use the porta potty and just voluntarily walked out. Seriously. Then, after the first night, competitors like Carl got eliminated because a single big toe slipped over the red line while they were sleeping. But perhaps the darkest, funniest elimination of all, a competitor accidentally stepped over the line because they dropped a raisin. And not only did he touch the raisin, he proceeded to physically caress it outside his circle. I mean, guys, that is a $500,000 raisin.
Once those accidental dropouts finally cleared out, we rapidly moved into Trial 1. And this shifted the dynamic from self-elimination right into trust and sabotage. People immediately started forming alliances with their neighbors. But, you know, as any good sports analyst will tell you, in a game with only one winner, alliances are really just future betrayals waiting for the perfect moment.
And this dynamic was engineered beautifully through the 24-hour tower defense game. The rule was deceptively simple. Build a tower on a block. If it falls in the next 24 hours, you lose. But here's the twist. Everyone was handed a dodgeball. At the end of the 24 hours, the lights would flash red, and they'd have exactly 10 seconds to throw their dodgeball at someone else's tower. By forcing them to wait 24 agonizing hours just holding a weapon, the game was perfectly designed to brew extreme paranoia.
So when that 24-hour timer finally hit zero, it was just pure chaos. Dodgeballs were flying absolutely everywhere, but the most brutal, relationship-ending betrayal came when Hugo threw his dodgeball and directly eliminated his own ally, Rain. As someone perfectly described it in the room, what you just witnessed is what I would call instant karma. The fallout was incredibly swift, and Hugo was ironically eliminated right alongside her. At that point, trust was officially dead.
Okay, let's move on to Trial 2 and see how this builds into something even more devious, the psychology of time. The room was swiftly split into 4 quadrants for a really high-stakes game of hot potato. 2 massive balls were tossed into the crowd, and a completely hidden 60-minute timer was started. When that timer hit 0, whichever 2 quadrants held the balls were instantly eliminated.
And this brilliantly illustrates how stress entirely destroys human time perception. Because the timer was completely hidden, the teams tried to count the seconds out loud. Just look at the staggering gap in their internal clocks here. Barely 10 minutes into the game, the orange team thought 9 minutes and 20 seconds had passed, while the green team logged 10 minutes and 15 seconds. In a game where a single second dictates whether you win or lose $500,000, a full-minute discrepancy is an absolute disaster.
I mean, really put yourself in their shoes for a second here.
How well could you count to exactly 60 minutes with people screaming, throwing things to distract you, and giant dodgeballs flying at your head? As one competitor pointed out, the moment those balls get thrown, time goes right out the window. It just becomes a pure frenzy of survival.
So after days of brutal eliminations, we finally arrived at the top 10. And here, the creators did something completely unprecedented. They actually gave the final 10 veterans the power to select their own challenge. They debated doing a bench press, they completely rejected games of luck like rock, paper, scissors, and ultimately they chose their own physical torture, pure endurance. They settled on a really simple but agonizing test, standing on one foot. But the rules laid down by the Standards and Practices team were intensely strict. You pick one leg, you cannot change legs, and you absolutely cannot use your other foot for support. If it even brushes against your other leg, you are instantly eliminated. I mean, this required immense physical rigidity and just total mental stillness. What followed was 38 minutes of absolute agony. The silence in that room was deafening. By the 16-minute mark, calves were literally on fire. We saw Ronnie sweating a massive pool of water onto the floor just from the sheer exertion of balancing. Competitors like Loss, who was an actual gymnast, collapsed from hip and ankle failure. And then, right at the 38-minute mark, despite this heroic effort hovering just half an inch off the ground, Omar heartbreakingly collapsed. The field was officially whittled down to 5.
Which perfectly sets the stage for our final showdown. The final 5 survivors, Alison, Akira, Ronnie, Noah, and the 12-year-old phenom Gio were completely exhausted. Think about it, they had survived 95 eliminations over an entire week. But before the final battle, they faced one last massive strategic crossroads. They were given a huge choice: settle it right now with the final game, or wait it out in a traditional, agonizing endurance test that could last weeks. The breakdown of the final vote is super telling. The fatigue was just overwhelming, and by an incredibly narrow 3-2 tiebreaker, they chose a high-risk paintball shootout over endless days of waiting. They simply couldn't endure those circles any longer.
So the final game kicked off, and it was brutal. They were armed with paintball guns, each given 3 lives. Get shot 3 times, and your circle shrinks to absolutely nothing. And the tension exploded immediately on the very first successful volley. In a highly personal and vicious opening shot, Akira was hit directly in the genitals. Yep, the gloves were completely off.
From there, the vendettas escalated so rapidly. Ronnie, holding onto a really fierce grudge, stuck to a pact and targeted Allison, but his real deep-seated rivalry was with Akira. Ronnie declared, "I gotta take him out. If I take him out and he goes down with me, it's a poetic way to go."
And wow, that is exactly what happened in a moment of just brilliant, tragic irony. Ronnie and Akira fired simultaneously, mutually eliminating each other from the entire game. 2 hardened veterans were so stubbornly locked into a personal rivalry that they essentially cost each other $500,000 at the exact same second. It's such a stark reminder of how emotion can completely hijack your strategy.
With the field cleared, we arrived at the ultimate David versus Goliath matchup. Noah, a challenge beast who previously did 32,000 bicep curls, facing off against Gio, a 12-year-old kid who had outlasted, outplayed, and outmaneuvered literally dozens of adult veterans. Just incredible. Now, to try and throw Gio off, they actually brought his dad in for a heartwarming visit right before the final shots. His dad told him how incredibly proud he was, but if you thought that would soften Gio up, you'd be dead wrong. So the crucial point is Gio's response. Without a single shred of hesitation, this 12-year-old coldly stated, "That was absolutely heartwarming, but they're not my family, and I came here to get mine." Just ruthless focus. Which brings us to the final scoreboard. And it is perfectly tied. Noah has taken 2 hits, Gio has taken 2 hits. They each have exactly 1 life remaining. Their circles are shrunk down to the absolute maximum. The next shot wins $500,000. They raise their guns, fire, and Gio lands an impossible shot straight through the tiny cardboard hole of Noah's target.
Boom. And with that single pull of the trigger, Gio conquered 99 highly skilled, highly experienced veterans. I mean, he survived the mundane accidents, the bitter betrayal of the dodgeballs, the hot potato time warp, the physical agony of the 1-foot balance, and finally, a dead-eye paintball shootout.
It is truly an incredible study of the human condition under stress. So I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. If you were dropped into that circle, facing a brutal test of trust, entirely distorted time, and sheer physical agony. How would you play it? Would you rely on aggressive strategy, making alliances and playing the game, or would you just lock your knees, shut your mouth, and rely on pure endurance to survive? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how far you'd really go.